Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome. It's great to have so many of you with us today. We're just about to get started here with our second of three virtual fireside chats with President Brad Smith. We still have some people entering the event, so we'll give them a couple more seconds here to join us. We had over 150 individuals that registered, so we want to make sure people get a chance to get in and get logged in and join us today. But thrilled to have you with us again today. As I mentioned, this is our second of three. For those of you that joined us back 2 weeks ago, thank you for joining President Smith and Tony Stroud at the virtual fireside chat on May 27th. And we'll have another one in July that I'll share information with you a little bit later on that one. But first, want to thank our team here in the foundation, Rebecca Stevens, Jalen Jones, Ashley Marion, who are down the hall for me in what we're calling mission control, making sure that everything is set and running and you're able to participate and join us tonight. Thrilled to welcome back our 38th president of Marshall University, Brad D. Smith. Thank you, President Smith, for joining us again. We'll get him on screen here shortly, as well as our special guest, Jerry Ross, who serves as our Vice President of Enrollment Management and our Chief Enrollment Officer. And they have a great session for you today, talking about all the wonderful things that are happening within enrollment here at Marshall University. I want to send a special welcome to our Marshall University Board of Governors, Marshall University Foundation Board of Directors, Marshall University Alumni Association Board, as well as our chapter leaders and presidents from all over the country, and obviously all of our alumni and friends that are joining us this evening. Just a couple housekeeping items. There is a Q&A function that is live for this session. For those of you that joined us 2 weeks ago, we did not have that function fully available, but we do now. So please go into the Q&A section, and if you have any questions, comments, we'll be posting some interactive discussions in there as well. So please keep your eye on the Q&A section of the screen, and please feel free to respond at any point. So with that, I will bring on President Brad Smith and our Chief Enrollment Officer, Jerry Ross. Gentlemen, you obviously got the memo that we had to wear blue suits today, I see. So you look great. You look great. And thank you both for joining us, and really excited for the conversation tonight.
Thank you, Nico. It's a pleasure to be with you. Hello, Herd Nation. I'm going to get Nico trained on calling me Brad instead of President Smith. I'm always looking around to figure out who he's talking about, but it's great to see everybody here virtually again. For those who joined us the last time, welcome back. For those who are new this time, welcome. As Nico said, I had the privilege 2 weeks ago to participate in the first of these fireside chats with Tony Stroud, where we talked about the IDEA District. It stands for Impossible Doesn't Exist Anymore. It's our effort to connect our old main building to downtown Huntington and create a vibrant innovation district where it creates jobs and opportunities for research and advancement for our students and our faculty, as well as our community. I'm also excited today to be with you and spend some time with Jerry Ross, who is the Vice President of Enrollment and Admissions at Marshall University. And before I hand it over to Jerry, I'm going to set a little context. Some of this you've heard if you've heard me speak at different public forums, but it's always important to reinforce, or as we say in Wayne County, repetition doesn't ruin the prayer. So as we've discussed, you've probably all read, educational institutions are going through a period of pretty significant transformation and reinvention. I'm not just talking about college athletics, I'm talking about the academic institutions as well. And we're facing what is known as the 3Ds, demographics, digital, and doubt. It is also impacting our K-12 school systems. Starting with demographics, the data has shown that coming out of 2008 and the great financial crisis, the American family started to have fewer children. As a result of that, we now have the number of 18-year-olds in the United States projected to decline between this fall and 2041 by 10%. So we are aging as a country, not unlike Japan and other countries, but the number of 18-year-olds in the United States will decline by 10%. The three hardest hit states happen to include West Virginia. And we're projected to lose 18-year-olds at a rate of 26%. That's why you may have read we have almost 20 schools in the K-12 school system that are consolidating just in the next year alone. So ultimately, that led us to a need to reimagine our approach to enrollment, and it couldn't just be about high school seniors, and Jerry's going to talk about that more in a minute. The second of the 3Ds after demographics is digital. And this is not new. When the World Wide Web came to the campuses in the 90s and early 2000s, and then you have things like Khan Academy, Coursera, Credly, and now you have ChatGPT, Anthropic, Gemini, Llama, and all the other alternatives for generative AI. It's not only changing how students want to learn, it's changing how educators need to teach. And it's not what AI is going to do to education, it's how education needs to change to prepare students for a world of AI. And then the third is doubt. And I'm sure you read this every morning in the newspaper or in the Wall Street Journal or listen to it on a podcast. But there are legitimate questions being asked about whether or not the value proposition of education, and in particular higher education, is what it used to be. And there are real concerns, and it's gone as far as in the 90s, 92% of American families answered the question, I think sending my kid to college will give them a better life than I have. 92% said yes. You fast forward to 2015, that became 57%. And just last summer, it dropped to 36%. So all those things are leading to a lot of structural headwinds that educational systems are navigating through. But Marshall saw this. And in 2022, we pulled together as a campus. We chartered a course together called Marshall for All, Marshall Forever. And our goal was to make sure we had a 3-phase change management process. The first was to stabilize our current financial situation. At that time, we had a $28 million structural deficit, and we had gone through a period of 13 years of enrollment decline from 2010 to 2022. Jerry Gilbert was an amazing leader. In front of him, Dr. Kopp, and Jerry gave me full transparency coming in. He said, you're going to need to focus on strategic enrollment management because if we don't get students in, we're not going to be able to grow, and we're not going to be able to pay our faculty and our staff. And the other thing was we had a lot of help from the federal and state government through COVID, through sources like ARPA. But after that started to melt down, we and all other institutions in the country found themselves in a structural deficit. And ours was $28 million. So the first thing we had to do was stabilize our financial situation. The second part of our turnaround strategy or transformation strategy was to adopt the best practices of others. And one of those best practices was leaning into online, making sure that we were giving our students options to learn from distance as well as in the classroom. And then the third and final part of our transformation was to become the best practice or the case study that others want to learn from. And so we designed things like Marshall for All, Marshall Forever, guaranteeing 100% job placement with no debt. And the other thing is we came up with 6 areas of distinction. And you've heard about us talk about cybersecurity and aviation, where now we have schools coming to study Marshall, and we have news outlets coming and reporting on what's happening at Marshall with these efforts we have underway. So that's the course we've been navigating over the last several years. What's not really fully appreciated in the Marshall for All, Marshall Forever plan is that it has 5 student-first priorities. Most people can articulate our goals, which is 100% job placement and no debt, growing research from 70 million to 150 million, and increasing the employment opportunities by 3x, and to get a 30x return on investment for every dollar the state gives us. Today, we're at 18x. Those are the goals we've put in place for our 200th anniversary, 2037. But what drives that are 5 student-first priorities. They are to increase access. In other words, let every student see a possibility to come to Marshall. The second, ensure affordability, making sure we're the most affordable from a net tuition perspective, but also the highest return on investment in terms of how much you make when you come out. The third is to grow our support programs. Once we get you to come to Marshall and we show you it's affordable, we want you to retain and graduate on time. So we've got 4 levels of support we do. We give you a friend at Marshall, which is a student, a peer. We give you an academic advisor and a professional advisor that help you go through Gallup Strength Finders to figure out your superpower and then match that with a major. And then we're trying to get more alumni to become mentors so we can teach you life skills. So those are the 4 levels we put in place. So we have increased access, ensure affordability, grow support programs. The fourth was deliver on demand. We have grown online 60% over the last 4 years. And the last is ensure lifetime achievement. And that's where you see us rolling out things like micro-credentials and certificates. So once you get your degree, then you get out into the workplace and somebody rolls out ChatGPT. You just log in, learn about ChatGPT from Marshall because you're an alumni, and you're going to continuously be Marshall forever. So those are our 5 student first priorities. They underpin Marshall for all. They ladder up to the big aspirational goals of no debt, 100% placement, growing research to 150 million, increasing jobs 3x, and getting a 30x return on investment. Jerry's going to walk you through how have we reversed a 13-year enrollment decline and brought these 5 student first priorities to life. So with that, I'll hand it over to you.
All right. Thank you, Brad, and thank you, Nico, and our partners in Foundation and Alumni Relations, and our audience who has joined us today. You're all part of the Marshall family, and we're thrilled to be here with you today. In enrollment management, I had the pleasure of joining Marshall in 2023, and what brought me here was the promise, the potential, and what was already well underway before I stepped on campus. And really proud of the team and the campus that's really come together to help us grow enrollment over the last 3 years. Our work in enrollment management is complex, but our mission is incredibly simple. We work to recruit students who will come to Marshall, who will ultimately enroll, persist, and graduate from the university, becoming members of the community, the state, the region, and the alumni family. The foundation of our work is really built around 3 things: innovation, agility, and collaboration. And each of those things drive all of our activities that we're working on. Today, I'm going to touch on 3 main things: our success over the last few years, the strategic planning that is the foundation of that, and some of the ways that others can help us and continue to help us continue this work. So our success has been talked about a lot, both regionally and nationally, but as a refresher, our total enrollment headcount in fall 25 was over 13,000 students, and that's increased over 20% over the last 3 years. Freshmen have increased over 24%. Grad students have increased over 9% during that time. So we have grown multiple student populations over the duration of the last 3 years. Some of what goes into that are a lot of sweat, shoe leather, but a lot of strategic planning as well. Over just the last academic year, we had over 400 high school visits that helped to reach prospective students, over 400 college fairs that we were out in the state and region and nationally. Over 800 students came to campus for campus tours. We sent over 6 million emails out to students, 352,000 text messages, and 200,000 print mailings, plus hosting thousands of students and parents on campus for our Green and White Day events, our Marshall Bound admitted student event, and those things that help bring the student to campus. And this week, we're hosting the first week of our orientation, where we're welcoming the incoming class for the class of 2030 for our freshmen, and the class of 2028 for our transfers who will be joining us. This week, we'll have over 900 students plus guests on campus. And then something we're incredibly proud of, a new type of event, are our high school signing days, where we reach out into the community. What we try to do is create a signing day experience, much like you would have for a student athlete, but we do that for regular students. And we take Marco, we take alumni, we take a number of others, and it is a very special experience we provide when we go into these communities around West Virginia and Metro. A big part of our work that Brad alluded to was our strategic enrollment management planning efforts. And this work started before I got here. But we recognize that with the demographic cliff arriving, and West Virginia's had challenges with demographics for years, that we were going to have to think differently about how we enroll students. We could not just rely on one population. Even the freshman population would be the foundation of who we are. But we realized we're going to have to reach any type of student in new and creative ways, leaving no stone unturned to have a foundation for how we focus these efforts both in the short and the long term. And it doesn't sound revolutionary, but the approach has been very broad-based, but it's reaching 10 different student segments that were freshmen, transfers, graduate, online, adult, non-traditional, dual enrollment, those high schoolers who are getting a leg up while they're in high school to earn college credit, military affiliated and veterans, out of state, and our growing metro population. And what this has allowed us to do, as well as international, the last population, but what this has allowed us to do is build that foundation of freshmen and transfers and graduate, but also begin to bring in these other students who maybe they're just looking for that credential. Maybe they're looking for a short-term course. Maybe they're looking to come back to school for upskilling or reskilling. And the work around this has been what I describe as a living strategic enrollment management plan. And it's not a plan that we've developed, that we put on a shelf and pat ourselves on the back and say the work is done. But we have a group of champions around each of these segments that's working continuously. They're coming up with ideas through a process of discovery, strategy, prioritization, and then implementation. And that has allowed us to really grow our enrollment across multiple areas all at the same time. And then lastly, collaboration. We're often asked how to help. And there's so many different ways that you can help us, sharing our work on social media, displaying things in your work and business, distributing our Herd Connection cards, which is a way you can refer a student to us, connecting students directly with us, shadowing us events, attending scholarship ceremonies and recruiting events when we're out on the road, and any other way. We're always open to new ideas and new collaborations. So those are some of the highlights of what we're working on. And then I know we'll have some questions and get into some other areas.
Yeah, and I'll put a bow around it by saying that one of the underpinnings that we have, if you go back to our student first priorities, is ensuring affordability. And I mentioned that one of our aspirational goals for 2037 is to have every student graduate without debt and then have 100% career placement, which means they go into the military, they join nonprofit for service, they continue their education, or they get a job. And one of the things the government now requires all institutions to do is measure how much money a graduate makes 2 years after getting their bachelor's degree. And you have to divide that by the total cost of the education to get their degree. And anything above a 1 is a positive return on investment. Anything below the 1 means there's multiple years they're going to have to work to make it up. I'm proud to tell you that Marshall University has the lowest net tuition cost of any school in the state of West Virginia, any of the 16 states in the southeast part of the country, and any other Carnegie R2 institutions in the nation. But I'm also proud to tell you we have the highest return on investment 2 years after getting their bachelor degree. We average a 1.47, and the national average is 0.85, and the Southern Region Education Board's 0.86. So we do not have a cheap product. We have an incredibly good value for the money product. And one of the things that's bringing that to life is we got very strategic about debt-free. We bring students in who are Pell eligible, families less than $65,000. They qualify for one of 2 programs. The first is tuition-free WV. If you come from a family less than $65,000 a year, then you will get to come to Marshall without paying tuition and college fees. You just cover your room, board, and books. The other side is if you're selected to be one of the members of Marshall for All, and we're adding 200 a year, so we had 100 in the fall of 23, 100 in the fall of 24, 200 in the fall of 25, and now we're adding 220 in the fall of 26. So we're growing that number. Then you're going to have the ability to come to Marshall, and as long as you take a financial literacy course, you get a work study program, or you have a job, then we will get you through in 4 years on time without debt. And that's what we're fundraising for. But I'm excited to tell you that the results for those students is they're outperforming their peers in grade point average. They're getting a 3.2 versus a 2.8 on average, and they're retaining 10 points higher. So these students are coming from less financially able means, and they are outperforming when they have the support infrastructure we've put in place. So that ties into the enrollment as well, because it's part of our value proposition. So with that, Nico, we'd love to open it up. Take any questions anybody has, just have a family dialogue here amongst friends.
And that value return on investment component is huge, especially with the generation of students we're recruiting for freshmen and transfers. It's always been true for adults because they want something that's going to have that immediate payoff. But with this generation right now, they're really interesting. The old mindset of go to the best college you can get into and figure out how to pay for it, it has really shifted. Now students are looking for a very affordable, high value, high quality education that they can leave with little to no debt. And we are well positioned in that market.
All right, Nico, we'll open it up.
All right. Okay. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. We have several questions that have come in. I will start with Jerry. And I know you touched on this a little bit, Jerry, about the role that alumni donors, board members, and community advocates can play in supporting enrollment efforts. Can you talk a little more specific about how stakeholders can actively contribute to those recruitment and the student success efforts that you have in place?
Yeah. That it's a really important foundation to the work that we do, because you are the best ambassadors for the university when alumni are out there living the big M out there. We have really worked with Nico's team to build alumni partnerships, and these partnerships have helped us expand our reach. So some of the things that can do, we partner with alumni. They will help cover events with us, sometimes for us. Sharing the information out is a huge piece of this as well, helping to cascade and amplify things that are coming out from the university through social media. Shadowing us at some of our events. We've had alumni chapters go to college fairs with us. The Charlotte chapter has been a great partner, where we are trying to reach that North Carolina market very strategically, especially as we're expanding our metro into a little bit of North Carolina now. The Eastern Panhandle group has been incredibly active, and we do a multi-day tour with them. So really the sky is the limit, but kind of some of the things I touched on earlier about helping to amplify social media, displaying work and promotional materials in your area so that will help reach students, and referring students that you may know. Sometimes once we can get them into our communications journeys, that's a huge part of the battle.
And Nico, could I add one? This came up last night. We had a closed session after our Board of Governors to do the listening tour, and I'll be doing that obviously with members of the alumni here, but it was a chance for me to hear from the Board of Governors where they thought things were going well, where they felt we needed to work, and what's the thing no one's had the confidence to tell me that I need to hear, and that's always the fun question. But one of the things that came up, and I'll put this out, and this is probably more for the foundation and alumni relations together, is someone said, we're going to these high schools, we're doing these academic signing days. We bring Marco, we play music. The parents show up because many of them are first generation. They pack the gym, and you would think that you're at a place where they're declaring they're going to be the starting quarterback for Marshall University. The place goes nuts. But we're saying, here comes Amy. She's going to study nursing at Marshall. She's first in the family to go to college. And they take a picture with us and Marco, and she signs a commitment letter, and it's exciting. Mm-hmm. But one of the things that surprises me in all those high schools is when I go in, the number of teachers that come up with their Marshall green and they want to show me their office where they have their banners. And Kathy D'Antoni asked me last night, can we get the Alumni Association or the foundation to help us know where all the teachers are in the high schools that graduated with a Marshall degree? Because they can also be assets and ambassadors that we can connect to when we go into these high schools. And we can't get to every high school every year, but maybe we can get them some tools and they can help us with the students get excited about Marshall. So I hadn't even talked to Jerry about it. It came up hot off the press, and that's what these conversations are about.
That is a great idea, and something we can definitely work with Jerry's team to get done.
Yeah.
So thank you. Thank you for sharing that.
We've been working to rebuild our high school counselor program. We host a group of counselors every year on campus in the fall. We try to reach them for the ones who can't come to campus for that event. We have a newsletter that goes out to them, and knowing the ones that are Marshall alum, would be huge in helping us grow that network.
Yeah. All right.
Okay. We had a question just as a reminder for our attendees, if you go into the Q&A section, you can post a question there. Jim Summers down in Atlanta. Jim, great to hear from you, class of 1970. I think, Jerry, this one's for you as well. What is our international student recruitment strategy other than student athletes, and what are we doing to keep them safe when here on campus?
Yeah, international is a very volatile market right now to recruit students. If you pay attention to the international news, you pay attention to dynamics around visas and things of that nature. Not just at Marshall, but everywhere, it's just a volatile network. Marshall had gone through a period where our international enrollment had dipped really low, and we were steadily rebuilding out of that. And we do a number of things to try to reach international students. We've worked hard to remove barriers around the application process and around English proficiency to make sure that we have multiple pathways for students to prove that they are qualified to, and ready to come study at Marshall. So we've smoothed out many of those things. And then we partner with our colleagues in academic affairs. Zelly Rivas, who's our assistant provost for global education, does a lot of work going abroad to recruit students at international college fairs. And that helps reach students in markets that we're targeting at that point in time. And then we work with some what we call agents that help identify students who might be well positioned to come to Marshall. And they are somewhat of matchmakers that help you get students to the right institution. So those are some of the ways that we reach students beyond just the student athletes in the international space. And then Zelly also works really hard with the entire Huntington community, not just on campus, to provide a safe and welcoming atmosphere for those international students once they're here. We do an orientation. We have the Thanksgiving meal that is very popular with the international students, and then helping the students kind of pathway of what they're going to do between semesters, during the summer, so that they can make sure that they are well situated to continue their study and be successful. So wraparound services, just like we do with all of our students, but tailored to our international market.
Great. Thank you, Jerry.
Yeah,
Appreciate it. Thank you, Jim, for asking the question. Brad, this one is for you, and this ties a little bit back into our session 2 weeks ago. How do initiatives like the Idea District contribute to our long-term growth and regional economic impact?
So one of the things that many of us experienced, especially those that are dialing in from different parts of the country, is for a long period of time, some did not have a choice when they graduated whether they could stay here or not because their jobs weren't available. So they had to leave to pursue their careers. And ultimately, we want to make it a choice as opposed to you have to. We want to create jobs that are here, that are in demand, that are exciting. And now with remote work and all the other things that are available, you can work for world-class companies that may be located elsewhere, but do it right here in West Virginia. So we studied what Silicon Valley did around Stanford University. We studied what Purdue University was able to create in their area, what Ohio State's done if you go over to Columbus. And we've modeled the Idea District after those proven best practices. As they say in the design thinking world, the best experiment to run is one someone else already ran on their dime and proved to work. And in business, that's called benchmarking. So you can actually take that and say, let's run that same experiment here. So we're replicating those successes here in Huntington. What's going to happen is employers are moving in now. They want to tap into our faculty for the research. They want to tap into our students. They want to be near the university because of its vibrancy. And so we have Intuit, who's located here in the Idea District. They're creating 250 jobs. They start at $18 an hour. They actually craft the shift around the classes that the students have so the students can go to class and then come and work. We have other companies that are announcing. In fact, there are two here today that's premature, but Tony and I welcomed them and took them through the Idea District, and they're building out buildings. So just imagine what happened in Texas when they built their Institute for Cybersecurity, which is known as the West Coast Shield. They protect the U.S. in the dark web. 60 companies located around their Institute of Cybersecurity, creating jobs and economic vitality for San Antonio. We are doing the same thing for the East Coast. We're known as the East Coast Shield, and we're here to protect the critical infrastructure, which is utilities and hospitals and government buildings and educational systems. And we have companies already locating around that. So what it basically does is create jobs so students don't have to leave. They can get a job here in demand and high paying. It creates a tax base for our municipalities and for our city. And it creates opportunities for our faculty to do amazing research. And it creates a flywheel effect.
And also opportunities for students while they're here in some cases with some of that. And you know, that halo effect around things like this helps raise the tide for everything. And you know, as students are very cognizant of outcomes upon graduation, whether that is their first destination job or first destination grad school, these things really help us on the recruiting student front as well.
Mm-hmm.
Great, thank you. I have one that just came through, and I think, Jerry, this is for you. Do you have plans to expand the metro into Pennsylvania or into other states? It's a great plan, as I show here in Clark County, Ohio, how many students can go to Marshall for less than the most of the Ohio public schools. So
Yeah, that is a great question. And we are super proud of the growth that we've had in Metro over the last few years. We've strategically expanded this over the last few years up to 150 miles into Kentucky and Ohio. And just yesterday, we're really proud that the Board of Governors has approved a two-phase expansion to what we know as Metro today. So beginning in fall 27, we will expand this to a true 150-mile radius. So that 150 miles will be going into Kentucky and Ohio. Now we're going to take that the other direction, and it's going to take us into Virginia, Pennsylvania, a little bit in Tennessee, North Carolina, and even Indiana stretches into 150 miles into just some counties in some of those states. The biggest area is in Virginia, but we're going to be really going aggressively into these markets and already have started the planning and starting to reach students in those areas with the news of this. So that's phase one, beginning in fall 2027. Phase two, beginning in fall 2028, the expansion to what we know as the border state benefit, will go all of Kentucky, Ohio, Maryland, Pennsylvania, and Virginia. So we are really excited about this as it gives us new markets to reach. But just as the person asked the question said, we are very competitive from a price standpoint with our Metro tuition that sits between in-state and out-of-state tuition. And it prices us very competitively with in-state tuition in some of these markets where we can be a very attractive option for these students with our value and everything else we've talked about.
And I'll just add two things on this, Nico, because it is hot off the press, 24 hours old. We've done a lot of analysis on it. You may ask, well, why? Well, we want to test our way to success because working your way out of a structural deficit, looking at the enrollment cliff, if we aren't growing 18-year-olds in West Virginia, we need to get others 18-year-olds to come here. And that's what we've been doing. We started with a 50-mile radius in Metro. We had a break-even analysis. We blew past it. We made it to 100 miles. We made it to 150 miles. And now we're making it a complete circle, and then ultimately the border states that touch West Virginia. The break even, by the way, to go to the true 150 miles is 6 students, 4 undergrad, 2 graduate. So just let you know that the logic is clear. We just had to think about it differently and go after it. We need to make sure his team's resourced. So that's the exciting thing. And you just mentioned the rationale behind it. You have in-state, you have out-of-state, and you have international. And people would come in and say, I sit in South Point, Ohio in Chesapeake, and I can see Marshall from my back porch. I'm closer to Marshall than the kids in Charleston. And so we went to the legislature and said, can we actually give in-state rates? They said, no, you have to basically have a rate higher than in-state. It has to be at least cost of education, cost of attendance. So we said, well, can we make it lower than their in-state rate? And they said, yes, you can do that. So our Metro rate is designed to be slightly higher than West Virginia, but lower than your in-state schools you can get in those communities. And that makes it worth coming over the border and coming to Marshall. And it's grown 60% since we rolled it out.
And I think alumni in these areas will be very, very helpful as we go to expand this.
Yeah,
absolutely.
We've already been footprinting, as we call it, in some of these areas in preparation for this, trying to build a little bit more awareness. And then digitally, we'll be reaching prospective students in these areas over the next few weeks and months.
Yeah, and we'll be sure to share that specific information with our alumni in those regions as well, to let them know that the Metro rate is in their areas and anything they can do to help. I think we have time for maybe 2 more questions. Jerry, I'll go to you with this one. This is from Max, who says, I live in the Midwest and I see many TV commercials about Purdue Global. Can you talk a little bit about Marshall's advertising rationale along the lines of TV? We actually have 2 questions that came in about advertising. So anything you can share on that?
Yeah, we have a great partnership with our university marketing and communications. The alignment between our recruiting efforts and our marketing efforts is unique at this institution, and that we work very closely together. The work we do informs what they do and vice versa. That has allowed us to really fuel our success. We do not have a huge marketing budget like a place like Purdue Global, where they will spend $100 million around marketing in that space. So we have to be really creative, and our marketing team focuses our digital efforts, which is where we spend our dollars, on areas where we're going to see a huge return on that investment. And they work to beat industry averages, sometimes several times over, as they're reaching those. So we do A lot of advertising around search. So that students are searching for best value nursing programs, that will help drive that in geographic areas in our West Virginia footprint, our metro footprint, including our now expanded metro, as well as some key out-of-state areas. We also do some very targeted geofencing with social media and things of that nature, and geofencing around events where if we know we're going to be at a college fair, reaching a lot of students in our high school, early college age will get served up an ad for Marshall while they're attending a college fair, potentially. So things like that. That's where we really focus a lot of our efforts. But I think the most important factor is how well coordinated this work is that allows us to be agile and successful with it.
And I'll just add very quickly, as a reformed marketer or recovering marketer, 36 years in my prior life before I moved into the general management area. But the neat thing about this is our team is able to show an ROI on every dollar they spend. And so I'll give you a couple stats because I just presented them yesterday to the board. So they're hot off the press and in my head, I can't forget them. First of all, our marketing team won 3 platinum awards last year, beating all other universities. And our CMO, Dave Traub, our chief marketing officer, won the Leadership Excellence Award, which is basically Chief Marketing Officer of the Year. And that was pretty incredible from a school like Marshall who doesn't have the resources as others. And why was that? Our website conversion, people who come to the website convert into an actual enrolled students, 4.2%. The national average for a university is 2%. And the cost to market and get a student to become a student. So how much marketing dollars does it take to get somebody to actually turn from a prospect to a student? It costs us $50. The average university is spending between $429 and $630. So we are truly hunting with a rifle, not a shotgun. And it's primarily because we have come to appreciate our teams leaned into technology and said, this is where the students are doing their research. Let's go after them there and convert them into a prospect. Okay,
Wonderful.
Go ahead, Nico.
Thank you. So I think we have time for one more. I do have a comment in the Q&A. Joe Cunningham, he's one of our Alumni Association board members. Joe, welcome, out in Brighton, Michigan. And he just wanted to share that you have a volunteer in me to mentor students anytime or visit high schools like Parkersburg High during homecoming week. He's very pleased with that strategy and loves to participate in it. And Joe was here a couple of weeks ago for Community Cares Week. And Joe, really appreciate all your support and commitment to Marshall.
All right, Joe,
so I think we have
to connect with you.
Yeah, absolutely. So we have time for one more, and Brad, I'll give this one to you. It's a great question. Some online graduate certificate programs allow you to stack them and achieve a master's degree. So is there a strategy? Sorry, I had to go through some other stuff there. Is there a strategy being considered along these lines with certificates and micro-credentialing at Marshall?
There is, and I appreciate it. When we say Marshall for all, Marshall forever, Marshall for all is clearly an opportunity to reduce the barriers so all students can see a pathway to a better future. And that's where financial and wraparound services and all those things we talked about come in. Marshall Forever is stackable credit credentials and micro credentials. The ability to come in and get bite-sized pieces of learning and have them actually piece together and roll up to a degree. And so we are in the process now of reimagining our gen ed program, general education. We're looking at how all of our schedules and all of our academic offerings to say how do they stack and transfer so you don't get a penalty if you decide to change majors. And we're doing the same thing with the Marshall Skills Exchange, which is where our micro-credentials are. We want them to stack up so they add up to something. Some universities have done this really well. They fall under the banner of competency-based learning. We work in an accreditation system that we need to make sure we stay accredited as a university. So we're having to take a slightly different approach, but we are absolutely working it, and I'm excited to see the progress we've made.
Wonderful. Thank you, Brad. And thank you. That was Shelley Porter, class of 2010.